Welcome you. Yes, there we are. Good morning. I'd like to welcome you to the April meeting of the LCTCS Board of Supervisors Audit Committee. Thank you for joining us today. Before we begin, I'd like to remind you that the Audit Committee meeting is being live streamed. With that, I'll turn to our chair.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August 10th LCTCS Board of Supervisors Audit Committee meeting. And I would like to ask Jennifer if she'd lead us in the pledge. If you would, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Chair, let the record reflect that those pledges are things that we do at every monthly meeting. And particularly given some of the discussions of late, it's important that we recognize that procedurally, we recognize the importance of uniting under one flag.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. That's very nice. I just assumed it was a natural. I mean,
It's the way we've always done
I was
it, right?
very
Yeah.
accustomed to that.
Yes.
You're surprised if you said we don't do it all the time.
Exactly. I love that.
Well, thank you very much. Could we get a roll call,
Here's the
please?
last, we need to call the meeting to order, and we also need to appoint a committee member to the committee.
Okay, we need to call the meeting to order, and I need to appoint a
Yes,
new.
sir, you can appoint you.
Okay, and I'd like to appoint Chairman Mount, to the committee, if we may.
Yes, sir.
Is there a motion required for that and or a vote?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. Welcome.
Oh, I'm glad to be here. As always.
And at this time, I can take roll call to see if we have an established quorum. Chair Salat,
Here,
present. Supervisor Burke is absent. Supervisor Bradford is absent. Supervisor Wood
Here.
is present, and Chair Mount
Present.
is present. At this time, Chair Salat, we do have a quorum established.
very good. Thank you very much. I'd like this, excuse me, if there's been any questions from the public,
No, sir, we have not received any public comment.
okay. Well, let's get into our weather agenda. May.
Here's the last. Can you read the statement that's there?
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm struggling.
Oh, okay.
Have been any requests for public comments related to one of the agenda items on today's meeting agenda? If this is reminded, the public comments must be related to a specific agenda. Thank you, Mary.
We do not have any public comments.
Okay, and there is none. All right. All right, need to approve the minutes from August the 9th. Take some motion to make a motion, we move.
Okay. Motion by Supervisor Wood,
Second.
seconded by Chair Mount.
So, motion and second, approve the minutes from August the 9th, 2023. Okay. Minutes, okay, I'm working down here. All right, we need to approve, a motion to approve the December 2023 minutes, including internal audit report, projects, progress, and additional inquiries. And entertain a motion for that item.
Motion to approve the December 13, 2023 meeting.
Motion to adopt the December 13th meeting.
Okay. Motion by Supervisor Wood. Can I get a second? Okay, motion by Supervisor Jones. And Chair Mount, motion.
Okay.
Okay, so that motion also included the internal audit report? No, okay,
No,
we have
we need a
another,
motion.
sorry, we have another motion.
That's just a report from Jeff.
Okay, all right, so where am I? Am I, ending on Mr. Fleming?
Item F.
Okay, on F, okay, the internal audit report projects in progress and additional inquiries. Too sharp
I
today.
move that we adopt the internal audit report, projects and progress additional inquiry.
Great, thank you.
It's just a report from Jeff. You can go ahead.
I'll start. I appreciate everybody coming. I know the weather's not great, but I think as far as positive news, this is probably gonna be one of our best audit committee meetings. I want to start with reports that my office has issued since we last met in December. The first one is a restricted fees review at Bossier Parish Community College. Restricted fees are fees that the colleges charge to our students. They're enacted by legislation. They're by their name more restricted. It's not just money you can spend on anything you want. We get a lot of questions about these from the colleges, so we decided to include it on our 23-24 audit plan, which you approved last August. And I think this project was worth its time. It took a lot of time and effort because we had never done this review before, so there was a lot of work on the front end. But now we have something that we can go forward with and take to other colleges. But to get into the details of this report, at Bossier Parish Community College are doing a great job with their controls over their fees. They have committees to approve with their expenditures. The staff that was responsible for reviewing and administering these fees had a good handle on things. There was one issue that we found with the tech fee. They used the tech fee to install some locking mechanisms on the doors throughout the campus. There was a software component as well with that expenditure, and they expensed these locks and software all to tech fee. Reading the legislation, it was my opinion that the physical locks that went on the doors could probably be spent or expense in another category, and the software expense to the tech fee, which is allowable. When you read the law, there's maybe some room for interpretation. Maybe the locks could go under tech, but in internal audit's opinion, I'm not an attorney, but what we did talk with our in-house attorney on this. I think it would be best, and the college has decided to move those funds to a different fee. The locks, the software, I think is fine in tech. The chancellor is actually here if you want to expound upon that.
I don't know that I could say anything different than what Jeff has said. I'll just say that the internal audit function of our system makes all of our colleges better, makes us better as a system. I think that Jeff is right that, if we were in a court of law, we could argue it, but we're all on the same team. This is gonna make us better. And we're making some adjustments to our processes and our policy at the institutional level based on this review. And I'm glad that we were first, and I'm glad that, our experience may help other colleges make improvements as well.
Right, and that's important. Like the chancellor mentioned, they were the first. This random pick. We try to kind of cover everybody. They weren't singled out, but this will allow us to convey that information to our other colleges, because I find when one college is having an issue, others are as well. So I believe this is going to be brought up to our CFOs on Thursday.
Tomorrow. Thursday, I'm sorry.
Yeah. So
I'd like to,
Go
if
ahead.
you don't mind, I'd like to add too, to give some context. This law so it's a restricted fee from a law that was passed in 1995, right? So if you think about technology, 1995 versus technology going on 2025, there's a lot of difference, right, from there to now. So this has been a good learning experience in terms of trying to have that discussion between an audit and the college and even board office in terms of exactly what was meant when we say technology. And it's a real fine line to make that distinction, what's applicable versus not. But it's something that's probably going to be discussed going forward, because again, that technology is ever evolving, always evolving. Nobody would have ever thought we would have web-based services 30 years ago, 35 years ago.
Exactly.
Or the students would be asking, AI to write their papers for them, right?
Yeah.
That is not something covered by the.
No, honestly, you're right. Jeff, if I may, I think what's also important about this is it highlights the internal audit function. And it highlights the importance of the internal audit function. But where we did not want to stop at a report in which management had a disagreement, right? We felt like that was the place where there ought to be another step that says, let's resolve this, right? If we just stop and say we don't agree, then what have we really accomplished? And so what I'm excited about is the work that Jeff is doing with the chancellor, with the finance and law and legal team to be able to come back and ensure that this is how the function works. But you don't just simply, as someone has said recently, admire the problems, right? When you see a problem, you go and you fix it. And that's what we're doing as an organization. So very proud of the work and Chancellor, the approach that you're taking of being first and recognizing the importance. You know, that's part of the team and very much appreciated.
I want to share with you that Mr. Fleming and I talked about this yesterday in more detail. And for the new committee members, this is much more involved than you think. And I got a good lesson on it yesterday. And so, and for the word, admire the problem. And it's not a problem, it's just an issue. And it's going to be addressed, and the opportunity to share it with all the chancellors, because we already have it. And Mr. Fleming has really dug down, done the research. And I think we're on the pathway to solving something. We're ahead of the curve, really. Yes. Would be the best way to say it. So I commend you, Chancellor, for your willingness to come forward and be the example for us. And so although we don't have the time to go into more detail, it's much more complicated. Just trust me that what I heard yesterday, our work is ahead of us. But if we're going to do it, it's doable. Okay. Is there any other comments with that? That's a big item. So.
Yeah, the next one is the report that we issued recently on, purchase charge travel card. It's not something we love doing, but we're mandated by Division of Administration to do these. They write up our colleges if they don't have internal audit reviews of their card systems. So I never want to be the one responsible for the college to have to respond to a finding. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And so we do these. We have them on a 3-year cycle. It was River Parish's turn this time. Overall, they have good controls. They're not violating any travel regulations. What they weren't doing and wrote them up for is call it lack of documentation. So when you go to a conference, generally let's staying in a big city, you can't, now we're under the GSA rate, the government rate. It doesn't meet whatever, say the conference hotel is 200, the GSA rate's 150. You're allowed to stay at the conference hotel for 200, which is fine. And the college was documenting that. What they weren't doing is uploading that documentation to support those charges. So the Division of Administration views that as an unsupported charge. They said, oh, you're in this case $50 over, this is a finding. So it is as we're going through these, it is a common finding. The positive I will say is I haven't run into a situation where the college did not have the documentation on hand. They just aren't getting that uploaded. And with all these, I have them uploaded before I even issue my report. So it's no longer an outstanding issue. It's closed and taken care of. And I suggest, and they usually do, they put a little step in their approval process, whoever's approving the charge, to make sure those documents are uploaded so we don't run into the issue going forward. Because like I said, Office of State Travel, when they come, they write this up all the time. So I know I don't view purchasing travel cards as a huge risk area, but it is one of those mandated reviews that we're required to do.
Any questions concerning it? And then at every committee meeting I've been to, that topic has always been there. And it's minor, but it's there.
Yeah, you'll see it every time, because I try to do 1 or 2 a quarter. So every time we meet, we'll be talking about purchase travel card. We're going to have one where we have no fun. Next are our in progress projects. First one I have is I'm calling it a staffing analysis. This is kind of 2-pronged. The first it'll probably result in 2 reports, and not traditional reports that you're used to seeing where you have this is the finding, this is the recommendation. The first one is establishing a baseline for our colleges. A lot of our chancellors, they come from the academic side. And the colleges, no, people don't want to view this, but it's a business. I mean, you're running a business. So I think giving the chancellors an idea of like, these are the minimum level of staffing that requires to run this area, all the different areas. Here's the segregation of duty, you need to have in place. Here's some mitigating controls if you don't have segregation of duties. Joe even mentioned a great idea where you could have a collaborative effort. Let's say you don't have a segregation of duties at one college, but another college could assist. It doesn't have to be intensive. It could be a quarterly review, a monthly review, something to alleviate those concerns. But I think having a document that, I mean, every college is different, but having a starting point, for a chancellor who could come in, or even not even a new chancellor, but a chancellor who's already in that position and say, okay, these are my minimum level of staffing I need going forward. This gives us an idea, and it could be a living document as well. Things change, but again, we get a lot of questions on this system level, college level. I think it's worth our time, and we've already started doing the preliminary planning for this project, and based on what I'm seeing, I think it's going to return something that's going to be a great value. No,
I was gonna comment, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, and perhaps this is out there, is that tomorrow, when the chancellors get together, and I think this topic will become important, because again, it's occurring in one site, it's going to occur at the other ones, and so we might as well address it. One of the sort of far-reaching remedies, if you will, for this is for the chancellors to reach to the community, because it is the college is run as a business, and a lot of times the academia personnel probably is not quite clear to that, and so it'd be an opportunity for them to reach into the community and solicit perhaps 3 people from the business community, sort of what I would call like the kitchen table cabinet, and give them a sense of support. It also enhances the opportunity for them to reach into the community and get support. So when you're asking people to help you and give you advice, generally you wind up getting more advice. You get financial support, you get cooperation. So this is an opportunity to draw on the community strength and complement, if you will, what the chancellors are facing. So perhaps tomorrow in the conference with the chancellors, it might be an opportunity to suggest something like that. Certainly be not compensated. But it is, I think it is an opportunity. I've seen that model work in other areas. And great point. Some very interesting issues that are brought up today that really present great opportunities for us to grow. I mean, they're not problems, they're just opportunities. And I know that's a shame, but that's really the case.
And the last thing I have in progress, we've done such a good job on our fiscal year 23-24 plan. I've already started shifting some resources for some preliminary review for our 24-25 plan. I have some ambitious goals. A lot of these projects, they take a lot of research and planning on the front end. I don't want to become one of these audit shops where we just do the same projects over and over and over, notwithstanding the purchase card. But I'd like to get as much reach as we can. So to do that, it does require a lot of time and effort on the front end. So when we have that downtime on our current projects, we've been working on a few for the next fiscal year, and I don't want to, I guess that's just a teaser because I want to see where they go, but those will be approved at the August meeting. The next item I have, this is a new item. You're lucky to be here. This is, I'm calling it inquiries. In the past, we presented to you, we said, hey, 20% of our time is not into project. We get questions, we have spur of the moment things, we have fraud allegations we look into. Well, Dr. Sullivan, when we met in December, had a good suggestion. He said, well, why don't you track those rather than just say, hey, this is 20-25% of our time, put a number to it. So I did that from our meeting in December on. I tracked these were what I call an official request, not, sometimes I'll get a phone call and say, hey, we did this. And I can say, oh, you shouldn't have done that, or, hey, we want to do this, don't do that. I don't count those, but these are ones that require time, thoughtfulness, some research. So to break it down, gave 7 ethics opinions. Now, these aren't official opinions. I tell them I'm not an attorney. I've watched a good bit of courtroom dramas, but this is just my interpretation of the law. So we had 7 of those, and then 5 what I call policy or law requests. Sometimes these deal with maybe allegations of misappropriation. I don't want to use the word fraud because that's not, but just maybe some policy violations. And 2 of those require visits. With all these, they usually result in a memo to whoever requests, usually the chancellor. It's not something I issue out to the board. A lot of this information, it just doesn't need to go out to the wide. But it's just as important as our regular projects, because I stress to, when I get a call, and I stress to them, like, this is what we're here for, because sometimes they're like, I hate to bother you. And I say, no, this is I enjoy, yeah. Anytime you ask me to do something, I prefer that than me calling you up and saying, hey, we're coming. Yeah. So 7 and 5 broken down, and what this will do also is it'll give me an idea. I can trend everything. So a year from now, I can see, okay, we're having more or less of these. Maybe that tells us something, maybe it doesn't, but putting those numbers to it over a long period of time, I think might give us a good idea where we are. And I think a lot of that has to just do with turnover. I think that might be what you get more questions. Newer folks, I get more questions from, which is understandable. Does anybody have any questions about maybe the reports we've issued or in progress?
Yeah, just on the inquiries then, as you build these statistics, would you then plan on creating some kind of exercise or workshop or training opportunity?
Sure. I say that with the ethics, when there's a simple, I don't say simple, with a question that I feel like an employee should know with the ethics, I'll usually point them to the law and say, hey, during your annual training, this was mentioned in section, and I did kind of as a teaching moment, rather, because I don't want to just become a yes, no, because then they won't even bother paying attention.
Right.
I'll ask internal audit. So that is a good point. I mean, if we had 7 in the past 4 months, if I had a situation where it doubled, I would say, yeah, maybe we need to refocus our efforts on our ethics training, because I'm getting a question. I'm getting a lot of questions, and believe it or not, with the ethics issues we have, I'm always amazed. People can find that you think you've heard it all, but they'll come up with something like, wow, and it'll require that time to research and look through and bounce ideas off different folks. But yeah, the ethics stuff can get a little gray. And a lot of times I'll rely on their previous opinions. One good thing is they have a word searchable database on their website, and you can a lot of times, if the ethics code isn't giving you your answer, you can go find a previous opinion that almost matches word for word what you're looking for. So that's a good resource. But yes, I agree. If I'm getting a ton of ethics questions, I would say we'd have to question what are we doing for our ethics training, because it is discouraging when you get a simple one and you're like, well, you've been working here 10 years.
Yikes.
That's 10 hours of ethics training. So
wouldn't that lend itself for a memo to the supervisors? A simple procedure, just getting a memo out there. Hey, I've heard this question.
Yeah,
7 times.
Absolutely. And that is a good point. I think maybe if I was getting a repeat question like that, I could just send out a memo to all the chancellors and CFOs and say, hey, I've gotten this question this many times, for this particular issue. And I've done that in the past where they've had questions about, it's tough to determine, like, you can spend money on the business expenses and expenses for the college, but then they're like, oh, well, we want to buy such and such for this event, and there's this Cabela's three-pronged, I won't get into all that.
Not the sporting goods store.
Right. Cabela's three-pronged test, but anyway, that's a popular one, but stuff like that I understand because it's confusing for me, even I've read it 20 times, so.
Yeah, to members of the board, I just want to point to the fact that we have an internal audit shop where in a period of 4 months, 12 members of our 3,000 employees thought it was an okay thing to pick up the phone and call internal audit. We have been in a circumstance where the internal audit shop, not under Michael's leadership of way past, was not somebody that people would pick up the phone and call. In fact, they were scared to death to call internal audit because it was a game of whack-a-mole if you picked up the phone and called. What we have created through Michael's leadership and Jeff's leadership is a internal audit shop that is helpful to the colleges, as the chancellor just said. That's what internal audit should be. And I really wanted Jeff to include the inquiries because it says that the people at the college trust our internal audit function. And it's a really important signpost for us as an organization to say maturity. We're beginning to see that level of maturity. If 10 years ago, someone had said, we're going to do an audit of staffing, there would have been sparks would have flown, right? Because people would have been concerned that the expectation was maybe some folks had too many members on their staff, or too few members on their staff. Well, the bottom line is this is an opportunity to help the colleges. So Jeff, I can't thank you enough for the good work and the relationship that you built with the colleges.
I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Very much.
Well, that's it for me, unless there's any more questions.
That's all.
Well, yeah, announce it.
All right, Joe, would you give us a legislative audit report?
Sure, this one's brief and it's not by choice, it's actually, it's what it is. We've had 4 audits that were issued over a 3-week period. And actually, as one who's kind of sitting in my position waiting for these audits to be issued, you kind of wonder what's happening. You hear they're coming down the pipeline back to back. And thankfully, of the 4 that were issued, 3 of them were clean audits, no findings at all. Very quick and easy. It was almost like just pass them along, no big deals. And even so, the one that did have 2 audit findings, Central, it's not that really big of a deal. These were technical findings related to financial reporting, where you had an expense coded in one line that should have been coded to another line. It had a net zero effect. All you were doing was moving a number from here to here. That's all. The second one related to the federal IRF dollars that were received. This really was, as most things that kind of play out, was a situation from just circumstances. The CFO, I'm not blaming anybody, but there was previous to this current CFO, that we had another CFO at Central who, when HERF started, you were, as a college CFO, you were supposed to set up certain parameters to manage HERF. And as y'all may recall, during this time frame, we had some campus shifts that occurred among colleges. Central was one of them. But prior to this time, one campus, Oakdale, was part of their college, and they set it up factoring Oakdale into this calculation of drawing down HERF dollars. A new CFO comes on. During that time, the campus transfers over to Sewella, and they're doing some calculations based on when things were originally set up, when Oakdale was part of the college, resulting in a misclassification of funds that were drawn down. It was $139,000 roughly. So when it was found, basically they called the feds. They said, look, this is what's happened. This is the timeline of events. What can we do? They said, tell you what, revert the dollars back to us, but you still have an open period for HERF. It ends June 30th, coming up in a few months. You've got allowable expenses for these HERF funds. Draw the funds back down and hit those allowable expenses. So there's not going to be any lost revenues. There's no misappropriation of dollars. Everything's accounted for. It just happened to be a circumstance that was timing of when things happened, how things happened with these campus shifts and so forth. So in all, it's been a very good and mild audit season. I'm very proud of our finance staff and chancellors at our colleges in terms of how we've progressed with these legislative audits. To have 3 come out back to back clean, and then 1 really being a technical findings is great. Great.
Wonderful.
Just one comment. Thank you to the legislative audit team. I happened to have had an opportunity to visit with our legislative auditor Monday evening at the reception, and can't thank him enough for the approach that he has taken with these individual auditors. It is a different day. You can sense it with the auditors. That doesn't say that they are being easy on us. That's not it at all. Instead, what they're doing is they're being fair. And that's what we have asked for. In this very committee, you've heard me in the past make some pretty strong comments about what was going on around the legislative audit area. Right now, we couldn't ask for better partners in this work than our legislative audit
And I'd
team.
be remiss also not to also thank them for the time and effort they put in for Central. It's a full scope
Yes.
audit that we required this audit to be issued sooner rather than later, which would have, not jeopardized necessarily the sex accreditation process, but it would have made it definitely much more difficult. So thank you to the legislative auditor for working with us to get these audits issued timely.
But I think that reflects on the leadership and the consistency. If you reduce the turnover, your results become so much better, and that's starting to really show up. So yeah, compliments to the entire team. Thank you very much, sir. All right, is there any other comments concerning?
I just want to say, sorry, Mr. Chairman, I was out of order with the stale motion earlier. I was, got ahead of myself. That's all.
Apology necessary.
You'll forget. All right, is there any questions, since we didn't have any, I don't think any questions earlier on from the public, but is there any opportunity for the public to express any questions? So, Ms. Erica, has been any requests for public comments relating to the agenda? If not,
No, sir, we do not have any public comments.
wanted to make sure. Okay,
Just one thing, on this section, I just want to take this time to remind you, the board members, that personal financial disclosures, the tier 2.1s, they are due on May 15th, 24. So if you haven't gotten that, your attention, I'll be sending some emails. I'm gonna start ramping that up. So they'll be targeted. So if you're already done it, you won't be inundated with emails asking for something you've already done. Just want to take this opportunity and tell your other board members and get on it, because it's May 15th, they'll be here before you know it.
okay, if not, then a motion for adjournment.
Motion by Supervisor Wood,
I'll second.
okay, seconded by Chair Salat.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for that reminder.
Madam